70s radio was wild. Massive riffs, outlaw lyrics, and censors ready to yank the needle the second a song stepped over some shaky line. Brand names, one cheeky phrase, even a flock of naked cyclists could get a hit pulled faster than you could flip the 45. Here are 12 tracks that ran headfirst into the band hammer for reasons that still make DJs roll their eyes.
Shaved her legs and then he was a she says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side.
Number 1. Lola, the Kinks, 1970.
Where you drink champagne and it tastes just like Jericho.
Ray Davies wrote the lyric after watching the band's manager dance with a drag performer at London's Speakeasy Club. The Kinks cut the track on the 9th and 10th of April in 1970, using a Gibson acoustic, a dobro, and a glass bottle for the resonator slide. Pye issued the single on the 12th of June 1970 in Britain. Reprise followed on the 28th of June in the United States. Within 3 weeks, it was number 2 on the UK chart. Kept out by Mungo Jerry's In the Summertime, and number 9 on Billboard's Hot 100, their first US top 10 since Sunny Afternoon in 1966.
Hello,
Canada's RPM list put it at number 1 for 2 weeks, and Australian radio pushed it to number 4. The BBC blocked airplay because the line, "It tastes just like Coca-Cola," broke its no-ad rule. On July 3rd, Davies flew from New York to London, spent 20 minutes overdubbing Cherry Cola, then flew straight back to resume the Kinks' US tour. About 6,000 miles for one word. Several regional programmers in the South and Midwest still balked at the gender swap story. Yet the edited 45 moved more than 700,000 copies worldwide by Christmas. The success lifted parent LP Lola versus Powerman and the Money Go Round. Part 1 to number 35 UK and number 9 US financed the group's first American tour in 3 years, and kept Lola on FM playlists long after the BBC quietly cleared the uncut version in early 1971. Number 2. Hi Hi Hi, Wings, 1972. Paul McCartney tracked Hi 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 with Wings at Abbey Road on September 21st, 1972, finishing the take in 5 hours and mixing it in the same night. Apple EMI released the single on the 1st of December 1972 with reggae B-side Sea Moon. In Britain, it entered the chart at number 21 and peaked at number 5 on January 6, 1973. In the United States, it reached number 10, while Canada's RPM list logged it at number 1 for 1 week. First-run US sales topped 900,000, earning an RIAA gold disc the following spring. The BBC banned the record 48 hours after release. Censors quoted 2 issues: the open line, "We're gonna get high," and the phrase they heard as, "Get you ready for my body gun." McCartney insisted the word was polygon, but the verdict stood. Radio 1 switched airplay to Sea Moon, and Woolworths sold the single sealed in paper bags so customers couldn't read the lyric sheet. Capitol added a mono flip to the US pressing so DJs could cue it quicker, turning the band into free talk show publicity. Wings opened every show on the 1973 UK tour with Hi Hi Hi, McCartney leaning into the contested line even harder. The BBC finally lifted the block in late 1975, but by then the song had already cleared 1 million worldwide sales and became the set closer on Wings' record-breaking 1976 North American run. Number 3. Walk on the Wild Side, Lou Reed, 1972.
Shaved her legs and then he was a she says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side.
David Bowie produced the session at Trident Studios in London. Herbie Flowers laid down the famous double bass slide in one take and later said he earned £17 for the part. RCA shipped the single in November 1972. US stations liked the laid-back groove but balked at the line, and she never lost her head, reading it as a sex act. Dozens clipped the verse or played a homemade edit. Australia's commercial network banned the record outright, and New Zealand allowed airplay only after 9 p.m.
And it came from out on the island.
Censorship couldn't stop curiosity. The song reached number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100 in May 1973 and climbed to number 10 in the UK, giving Reed his first solo top 20 on both sides of the Atlantic. RCA pressed 100,000 UK copies in its first week and still couldn't meet demands. A second run pushed British sales past 300,000 by summer. In America, the single moved about 700,000 units in 5 months. While the parent album Transformer hit number 29 on Billboard and number 13 in the UK. Offstage, Reed faced extra hurdles. The BBC barred him from its afternoon youth programs, and CBS television cut the song from a planned appearance on Midnight Special. Reed countered by performing an even longer version on European TV, complete with the entire Colored Girls chorus. The track stayed on the US charts for 14 weeks and turned a cult New York songwriter into an unlikely pop star without a single word changed in the studio master. Number 4. The cover of Rolling Stone, Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, 1972.
Rolling Stone. Wanna see my picture on the cover? Stone.
Cartoonist-songwriter Shel Silverstein wrote the tune as a spoof on Rockstar Dreams. Columbia pressed the 45 in November 1972.
Is on my jeans. I got my poor old gray-haired.
US AM radio loved the joke. The single reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1973 and sold about 1 million copies for an RIAA gold disc.
5 copies for our mothers. Wanna see my smiling face?
In Britain, things stalled. The BBC's no advertising rule blocked any song that named a brand, and Rolling Stone was a magazine title said multiple times. Airplay dropped to a handful of late-night shows, and the record peaked at number 43 on the UK chart, despite 70,000 advance orders. To cap the gag, Rolling Stone finally put the band on its March 29, 1973 issue, but as a drawn-in cartoon, not a photo. Columbia shipped the magazine with every US promo copy, turning the band into free marketing and pushing album Sloppy Seconds back up the Billboard 200 for 6 more weeks.
That's beautiful. We got a lot of little teenage blue-eyed groupies.
Number 5. God Save the Queen, Sex Pistols, 1977.
I take the queen, 'cause tourists are money.
Virgin Records rushed the single out on May 27, 1977, 5 days before Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee Street parties. Radio 1 and Radio 2 yanked it within 24 hours, labeling the lyrics anti-monarchy. W.H. Smith, Boots, and Woolworths refused to stock it. Despite the blackout, the record sold 150,000 copies its first week. Gallup's charts computer showed enough sales for number 1, but the official UK list held it at number 2 behind Rod Stewart. Industry insiders still call that a deliberate block. The Pistols booked a rented boat, the Queen Elizabeth, to play the song on the Thames outside Parliament on the 7th of June. Police boats forced to dock. 16 crew and staff were arrested, and every London paper ran the photo on page 1. By month's end, total UK sales had passed 400,000. The single never reached British radio, yet it stayed on the chart for 12 weeks and pushed album Nevermind the Bollocks to number 1 that October. Number 6. Short People, Randy Newman, 1977.
Short people got no reason to live.
Warner Brothers shipped the single in September 1977 as a lead cut from Little Criminals. Los Angeles FM stations jumped on it first. By New Year's Day, the song sat at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, blocked from the top only by Baby Come Back. The RIAA certified a gold 45, 1 million US sales before Valentine's Day. The trouble? Many listeners missed the satire. At least 20 AM outlets, including KLIF, Dallas and WSB, Atlanta, removed the record after calling complaints claiming it was hate speech against short people.
No one knows short people around here.
A Maryland delegate drafted a bill to ban the song on state-owned stations. The proposal died in committee after 2 weeks of national ridicule. Newman, 5'11" himself, told Rolling Stone he meant to mock prejudice, not promote it. But the ban's held through spring. Top 40 programmers solved the problem by flipping to the B-side. Old Man during daytime hours while keeping short people for overnight play.
Short people got nobody.
Number 7. School's Out, Alice Cooper, 1972. Cooper's band cut the track at New York's record plant in March 1972. The finished mix clocked in at 3 minutes and 30 seconds with a ringing school bell and a children's choir from Greenwich Village's Church of St. Thomas. Warner Brothers released the single on April 26th. In Britain, it hit number 1 for 3 weeks, moving 200,000 copies and earning a silver award. In the US, it peaked at number 7 on the Hot 100 and went gold, another 1 million seller. BBC Radio 1 played the song but banned it from its Saturday morning junior choice slot after teachers groups said the line, "School's Out Forever," might encourage truancy. At least 5 English county councils asked local shops to remove the 45 from display windows near primary schools. In the States, stations in Milwaukee, Boston, and Tallahassee dropped the record during June exam weeks, then quietly put it back in July when classes ended. None of the pushback hurt sales. The parent album, also titled School's Out, reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 200 and stayed on the chart for 34 weeks. Number 8. Bicycle Race, Queen, 1978. Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my... Freddie Mercury wrote the song after watching the Tour de France whiz past his hotel window. EMI paired it with Fat Bottom Girls as a double A-side in October 1978. The single reached number 11 UK, number 24 US, and hit the top 100 in 8 European countries, moving about 750,000 copies worldwide by year end.
I want to ride my bicycle, I want to ride my bike.
The band wasn't about lyrics, it was the promo clip. Director Dennis Day Valens hired 65 nude models to pedal rented Raleighs around Wimbledon, Greyhound Stadium. The BBC refused to air even a blurred version, calling it gross, and several ITV regions blocked the video outright. UK chain Woolworths stockpiled the record but yanked the free fold-out poster that showed the same riders from behind. US distributors Elektra trimmed the poster to a head and shoulder shot to calm mall managers. Irish State Radio added its own twist, muting Mercury's line, "Jaws was never my scene," because Universal Pictures complained. None of this slowed sales. The song stayed on the British chart for 9 weeks and powered album Jazz to number 2 on the UK and number 6 on the US.
Say, God, give me a choice. Say, Lord. I said, Christ, I don't believe in Peter Pan, Frankenstein, or Superman.
Number 9. Radio Radio, Elvis Costello and the Attractions, 1978.
So you had better do as you were told. You better listen to the radio.
Costello wrote the track as a swipe at stations that trimmed playlists to safe hits. Stiff Records pressed the single on the 14th of October 1978. The BBC banned it 2 days later for calling programmers anesthetized and controlled. DJ John Peel broke ranks and spun the disc anyway on his late-night show, boosting initial sales past 60,000 in 3 weeks and pushing the song to number 29 on the UK chart. In the US, the band came from NBC. Costello was booked on Saturday Night Live in December 1977 to play Less Than Zero.
I watched you live in the shine of the light, not dial doing anything my radio advised.
10 seconds in, he stopped the band and tore into the unreleased Radio, shouting, "I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but there's no reason to do this song here." Lorne Michaels gave Costello a one-finger salute off camera and barred him from the show for 12 years. Columbia still issued the song as a B-side only, and it picked up enough FM play to chart on Billboard's Bubbling Under list at number 109. The BBC lifted its block in 1982, but by then Costello had switched labels, and Radio remained a live show closer rather than a radio staple. Exactly the point he'd been making. Number 10. Aqualung, Jethro Tull, 1971.
Sitting on the park bench.
Ian Anderson cut the track at Island Studios in December 1970. Reprise pushed it to US rock stations 3 months later. Many programmers gasped at the opening scene, sitting on a park bench, eyeing little girls with bad intent. And at least a dozen AM outlets in Texas, Ohio, and Georgia pulled the song after the first week of airplay. KYYS Kansas City clipped the entire verse. Pittsburgh's WDVE moved the track to its after midnight block. The band didn't dent sales. The album Aqualung reached number 4 in the UK and number 7 in the US. Moved over 1 million American copies by early 1973, and now sits at RIAA Triple Platinum. On stage, Tull met the pushback head-on. Anderson opened most shows with Aqualung, spotlight on the ragged coat he wore to match the lyric, forcing local censors either to carry the full song or stay silent. Number 11. The Snow Goose album, Camel, 1975. Camel's word-free story album hit UK shops in October 1975, charting at number 22 and earning a Silver Award in 5 weeks. In the States, Decca printed a first run of 30,000 LPs for sale in civilian stores and US military PX outlets in Europe. 2 weeks after release, the publisher of the Paul Gallico's 1941 novella, also titled The Snow Goose, threatened legal action, saying the cover implied an official tie-in. The Army and Air Force Exchange Service pulled the record from its shelves in Western Germany, Italy, and the UK until Camel's label pasted a red sticker on the front reading, "Music inspired by the Snow Goose." Civilian shops kept stocking the LP, and word of the PX ban actually boosted curiosity. US orders doubled in November, and FM stations from Boston to Seattle added the single "Raider" to late-night playlists. By Christmas, the album had cleared 100,000 US sales. Modest next to arena rock, but huge for a 43-minute suite with no vocals and a goose on the cover. Number 12. One Toke Over the Line, Brewer and Shipley, 1971.
Sitting downtown in a railway station, one toke over the line.
Folk duo Mike Brewer and Tom Shipley wrote the song Backstage in Kansas City, joking about being one toke over the line after a joint. Kama Sutra Records rushed it to radio in February 1971. By early April, it sat at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 5 on Cashbox, selling about 900,000 US singles in 12 weeks.
Downtown in a railway station, one toke over the line.
The FCC didn't laugh. Chairman Dean Birch sent a memo to 3,000 stations warning that one toke promoted drug use. Dozens of AM outlets in the South and Midwest yanked it. And program directors who kept spinning the track were told they might jeopardize license renewals. The irony peaked when the Lawrence Welk Show, unaware of the slang, featured the song as a modern spiritual, with two singers sweetly harmonizing about the extra toke. Brewer and Shipley leaned into the fuss, appearing on The Tonight Show to explain the lyric while holding up an FCC clipping. Despite the bans, the single stayed on the Hot 100 for 14 weeks, pushed parent LP Tarkio to number 24 on the Billboard 200, and became a staple of FM classic rock blocks.
Downtown in a railway station, one toke over the line.
Banned or not, every one of these records still found a way onto turntables, and most sold better for the trouble. Which band felt the most over the top? Drop the title in the comments, cue up the record, and see if the offending moment even makes you blink.